afternoon to tonight's City Council meeting. At this time, can we have roll call?
Mayor Parton,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gore, Councilor Joyner,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Denton,
Here.
Councilor Pelham,
I'm here.
here, and Councilor Holloway.
Okay. Let's see. He's coming. Okay. All right. We're just waiting for Mr. Harris to log in real quick so we can allow him into closed session. Okay. All right. At this time, is there a motion to allow Councilor Harris to participate virtually?
So move.
All right, motion's been made by Councilor Joyner, seconded by Councilor Denton. At this time, Councilor Harris, can you state the reason why you are calling in virtually and where you're conducting the meeting from?
Yeah, physical handicap. My legs won't let me get there.
Okay. And where are you conducting the meeting from?
My house.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Councilor Joyner,
Yes.
Councilor Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham.
Yes.
He wouldn't vote, right?
I wouldn't say his name.
No.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. At this time, is there a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3 to discuss or consider the acquisition of real property for the public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and to such extent such discussion will be aided thereby.
So move. Second.
All right, motion's been made by Councilor Pelham, seconded by Councilor Joyner. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilor Joyner,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Councilor Denton,
Yes.
Councilor Pelham.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. All right, at this time, Mr. Harris, will you call back into the closed session?
Okay, will do.
All right, thank you.
I look at
I was
it
like, last night I went to Food Lion on my way home.
30,
I just like people to be happy myself in this life now. It's too short. Did you know the man that was fired? Did you know the man that was fired? Did you?
I thought that 29 would have flipped a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So that's the times we're living in. Yes, it is. So I'm standing there waiting for her. She's all this gas. What do you need? About $140.
All right, at this time, we will be coming out of closed session. Is there a motion to come out of closed session?
So move. Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Counselor Joyner, seconded by Counselor Pelham. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Joyner,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, certification, please.
Certification pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D, where only public business matters, 1, lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and 2, identified in the closed meeting motion discussed in closed meeting. Counselor Joyner,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on into our open meeting. R1, Mr. Charles Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Parton, members of council. I have 2 items to present to you. I'm going to start with R1, and give me just a second to present this. See if it comes up on the screen. Okay, so tonight I'm coming before you, item R1, with a request for the Shiloh Lodge, request for permission to apply for an MPS African American Civil Rights Grant for the Shiloh Lodge. This is a grant for preservation and restoration. The application that we would be preparing will be done by Sustainable Strategies DC. They are the group that we actually have on retainer, and they have given me an estimate not to exceed $8,000 for this grant. I had a conference call with them, and they said they have been very successful at getting this particular grant, and from what information I've sent them regarding the Shiloh Lodge project and its significance in history and its former use, they believe that this is a very good candidate for this grant. And so on the screen right now, there's a couple of things that I'm presenting here, and I want to talk about those. I also have brought a model that I built for the Shiloh Lodge as a visual aid that we can go through and look at, and I can answer questions. So this first picture here that you see in the upper right-hand area of your screen, that is the existing Shiloh Lodge as it exists today in its current condition. For just a little bit of a brief reminder, the City of Hopewell purchased this in 2019, and it was for the last 100 years used previously as an African American Masonic Lodge number 33 since Reconstruction until shortly before the City of Hopewell purchased the property. In the bottom left-hand side of the picture, there is a photograph that I have been able to predate the 1921 Sanborn Map Survey. I don't know the exact date, but I can tell you it's sometime after the photography was invented and 1921. The Sanborn maps don't show some of the things that are shown in this, and they did a survey in 1921. So what this shows is the original Shiloh Lodge a two-story building and then a earlier north wing that's represented here in my model. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the model for a second and just show you something. So I built this model in such a way that you can see the way the Shiloh Lodge looks without the restored north wing. And so this model now, as it sits, is how the facility would look restored with a new roof, landscaped, and an ADA accessible ramp, but without adding on the original north wing. So for the purposes of the grant that we're applying for, the preservation grant, primarily the funds that we would get, it's a $750,000 maximum preservation grant. Primarily the funds would be for the restoration of the building in this condition. The pricing that I've received to include adding the reconstruction of the wing is going to drive the cost over $750,000. So we would be seeking additional funding sources for that in the future. And we're always looking for those opportunities. So I just wanted to be clear, and I wanted to show you that this way. So the purpose of the preservation grant is to preserve the structure that has got the significant African American history, and particularly as its role in civil rights and equality struggle post the African Americans arriving here in North America. Okay, the next slide talks about the grant in particular that we would be applying for. And it is a preservation grant for the physical preservation. It is a non-matching grant, which means that we would not have to contribute any money towards it, although they do encourage some type of match to make our application more competitive. I'd like to remind council that councilor did previously agree to a $100,000 match towards the Shiloh Lodge when we went and asked for money a few months ago for the foundation repairs from the Cameron Foundation. That grant application was denied by the Cameron Foundation. So that initial money that had been offered towards that match has not been spent or allocated to my knowledge. So the deadline for this grant application is October the 10th, 2023, and that's the reason why I'm here before you. This is a very complicated grant to apply for from the standpoint of they require a lot of documentation. It takes quite a long time to prepare, and that's the reason why the cost is estimated at what it is. And so I was encouraged to seek approval as soon as possible in order to make that October 10th deadline. And this is not something that comes up more than once a year, and we don't know if it's going to come back again. So that's the reason why I'm here before you. The proposed use of the funds, if we are able to obtain the grant, would be for the design and construction documents for the architectural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, and civil, the foundation repair and structural reinforcement, which is actually where the bulk of the money would be spent, the abatement of hazardous materials, and then focusing on the exterior envelope, the roof, the chimney, the windows, and the siding and mechanical systems. And as I've noted here, the grant funds do not include rebuilding the north wing that's here. That would, if chosen to do that, we would have to do that under additional funding from other grant sources. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm ready to answer any questions associated with this.
All right. Are there any questions from council? Councilor Pelham?
You built that yourself?
I did build this model, yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow, it's nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great project. And I make the motion to approve.
Is the motion to authorize the Economic Development Department to
Yeah.
apply for the AACR grant and spend $8,000 from his budget to prepare the application?
Yes.
Okay,
I second that.
all right. Is there any discussion? Seeing none? Counselor Denton?
Yeah, just a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think this is a good move, and you hit on the foundation. And are we okay with what the Public Works has done so far to hold us so we have time to do all of this? I don't want to do all, and then it falls. The structural integrity is not what it should be.
Currently, the structural integrity is not what it should be. That's the reason why we're seeking this grant funding. There has been temporary shoring that has been, there is temporary shoring that has been installed.
Right.
And I believe that temporary shoring is doing its job based on what I can see. But time is not on our side, and I'm here recommending that we move forward with applying for this very, passionately.
So this meeting tonight is really just to approve your ability to apply for the grant
That's
and for the $8,000 that's needed.
That's correct. So I'm asking for approval to submit for the grant application, and I have in my budget, in my service contracts, the $8,000 needed for this, and it was something I had planned on applying for various grants, and this is one. I didn't know about this grant at the time, but this is one grant
Okay.
that this would be used for, yes.
All right, and I'm sure you said no matching grant. This is.
So as I said, and I'll back up to show you in their description.
You did
There-
have that.
So it is not required. No match is required for either project, meaning the preservation grant or the pre-preservation grant. However, a match will make your application more competitive. So that, I'm not asking for a match, I'm just reading what the documentation from National Park Service says.
So how much are we, maybe I missed that, but how much are you requesting this grant to be, or do they determine that?
I'm requesting the full amount at $750,000. I have received pricing from budget estimates from 3 different contractors that put the cost for the entire project between 1 and 1.4 million, which is why I said that includes the north wing, which I said the north wing is not included. So I'm asking for the 750 primarily for the preservation of the original building without adding the north wing. That's the 750.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Bennett? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Joyner?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Parton?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Pelham?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. R2.
So the next project here before you is going to be a little complicated. I'm going to take my time to go through this because there's quite a bit of moving parts. So I'm asking tonight in this presentation, the ask is for council to approve a support agreement to purchase 1.95 acres of M1 land that's on Reverend C.W. Harris Street And this M1 land, as I'll go to in a minute, it has significant historical meaning to the community, but in addition to that, this M1 land is the key to the development of a larger piece of property behind it that the city owns that is landlocked. And that's the thing I want to make sure that I can convey clearly to everyone. So I'm going to step through this very slowly, and I would welcome you to stop me along the way so we can have a back and forth and make sure I'm being very clear. So the pictures here that you see, this is the remnants of the site after the Wyndham Mattress Factory fire earlier this year. And what burned down was the original Harry E. James technical building and gymnasium. What did not burn down was this original brick two-room schoolhouse that is shown in this picture, and then the adjacent 1942 Carter G. Woodson School. That was the second African-American school location. The original one is located behind, or was located behind the fire station number 1, which is where Public Works is now. So the bullet points here is it's almost 2 acres of land that's zoned M1. It's 350 feet of road frontage on Reverend C.W. Harris Street. And that's key when we look at the bigger map. The city has an assessment on this property, the land only at $191,100. That's the assessment value of the land. It was not contested, but it was appealed. The real estate assessor's office went through and looked at it and held it at $191,000. That happened earlier this year during that. It was shortly thereafter that the fire took place and burned the property. The project goals and what we want to accomplish by this project is we want to purchase the schoolhouse, and I'm going to go into the significance of that in a minute, for the purposes of a tourism destination and separate that from the rest of the M1 land in order to connect 250 feet of road frontage to the city's 7.78 acres in the rear to make that land marketable and developable from an industrial standpoint. So the next slide is some pictures of the inside of this building. And as soon as the screen updates, there we go. So I went down a pretty detailed research project to confirm the origin of this building, its location, and determine how it got here and why. So the original exterior of this building was wood siding before 1940 when it was brought to this site, and brick was added to match the Carter G. Woodson School that was being built there and finished in 42. The interior of the building is very well preserved, as the previous owner actually replaced the roof, and then the bricks that were added on the outside also helped preserve the clapboard wood structure. The Department of Historic Resources, DHR, 2 representatives from DHR were here with me 2 weeks ago and toured the building with me, and for the purposes of getting their initial feedback, and they do not see any major barriers in obtaining historic designation for the property based on the research I've found and also the condition. The next page shows several newspaper articles that I'm going to summarize in a story that you can follow, because this is kind of small print, but you can read it in the future. This building started in 1916. It was a YMCA administration building that was located near the DuPont plant, essentially right back where the pile of salt and sand is at the current Public Works. In 1916, Reverend Samuel Perry began to hold classes there for the African Americans who were working and living in the new town of Hopewell that had grown up. This was different than the Prince George African American school that existed in City Point, and that school was very close to the Shiloh Lodge. We actually found this on the Sanborn maps. So the people who were working and living in the city of Hopewell who were African American, the children began to attend school in this building that was a YMCA administration building. It had 2 rooms in it. And the first year he had 80 students in 2 rooms. DuPont saw what was happening. They began shortly thereafter to build the plant school, which didn't have a name until 1928 when they gave it the name of Carter G. Woodson, after the African American from Brunswick County who did so many great things, and that's his namesake that continues with the school we have here in the city. So in 1937, you see the dedication here in the colored news section of the Hopewell newspaper when they dedicated the renovation of this schoolhouse building into the home economics cottage. And the little article below that from 1936 shows when they received funding from the WPA to actually make it from a 2-room schoolhouse and convert it into a home economics cottage. In order to do that, the WPA financed money to add 2 rooms onto the DuPont plant school. So when they built the new Carter G. Woodson School in 1942, you can see here very clearly in the article, it says that they took and relocated the home economics cottage that was behind the fire station. They relocated it to this site. So that makes this building not only the oldest African American schoolhouse in the city of Hopewell, but it makes this building more significant than any other structure in the story of African American education in our city, and the story of segregation, which moved it from at a place it was at to Davisville to be basically beside the second oldest federal housing project in the United States. When you take that and combine it together, what you have is a very significant structure in a story that can be told from a preservation standpoint and then also from a tourism destination standpoint. And that in and of itself, I think, is a reason for pursuing the purchase and preservation of the structure. It's more significant than the 1942 school building that sits next to it because it predates it by half a century. Now, this map from 1940 actually shows the original school, and behind it the 1-room schoolhouse and the fire station. And I just realized that I mislabeled it. It's not Patrick Copeland. That's a mistake. It's Carter G. Woodson. So you can see the 1-room schoolhouse that's referred to in the article, the fire station, and then the original school, and then you can see where it was relocated across from the Davisville Housing Project. So the Davisville Housing Project, which is right there, shown on the 1940 map. So even if that was the only reason to try to get the property, that would be a good reason. But from an economic standpoint, we get a double win here, because this map is what I want to show you. By buying the property that has the schoolhouse on it, we get 350 feet of road frontage that connects all this land behind it that the city owns that's not developable now, and makes it to where with that road frontage we can develop it in industrial, and it becomes very marketable for for flex warehouse, logistics, distribution, manufacturing, anything that you can do in M1. So the plan that I've put together is essentially I'm asking council to give me a support agreement that conveys the land that is the 7 acres behind it to purchase the 2 acres in front of it, combine those together, and then to carve off the schoolhouse to be a African-American historic cultural site and tourist destination, and then the combined land behind it and in front of it, we would sell, and we would take that non-performing land that's not having any tax revenue, and we would put it into a place to get revenue and add more warehouse, flex, space in M1. This is how important this is from an economic development standpoint. When this building burned down, and I met with Mr. Faison, the owner of the mattress factory, he said, I want to stay in Hopewell, but I need to find a location. I went downstairs and got with Chris Ward in development. We looked through the books, and the only place that he could be is in M1 or M2, and there was only one building zoned in M1, only one property. I spent all day going all over Hopewell, and he got that last one. Right now, if a business comes to me and says, I want to open a mechanical, electrical, plumbing shop, any of those things, I don't have a place for them. I don't have any places to put them in M1 today. And that's one of the things that we're working on. I'm so glad that Mr. Miller, a few weeks ago, purchased the old
Firestone.
the old building there on the corner of 6th Street and
Oh, no, that's.
Winston Churchill. Yeah, the old research, because that's M1, and I'm encouraging him to build some flex. So this is very important from an economic development standpoint. I've got to have, for me to bring businesses in that need to be in M1 according to our zoning, I have to have land that's accessible on road frontage. So this is really a win-win. So when I talk about the support agreement asking for finances, I'm asking basically for the 191 to purchase the 2 acres as a bridge only for a short time until I'm able to do the survey work to combine it and market and then sell the M1 larger part back. Now there is some wetlands on the west side of this. If you see this map, there's a pink area that goes up to the old basketball courts towards the front street. That is the developable area, about 4 acres. The part that's to the plan left there is not developable because it's wetlands. So we're not going to get the full value of the 7.7 acres because wetlands don't have value. You can't develop it. But that's the complexity of it. And in this last slide here, I've kind of cleaned it up and showed that the 3 moving pieces: the City of Hopewell property, which is in the center, existing; the property that we're going to buy from the 2 acres we're going to buy on Reverend C.W. Harris Street frontage, and then the red box is the new parcel we'll create that preserves the African American schoolhouse, and we'll turn that into a tourist destination for the historical significance of that.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Bennett?
Yeah.
Counselor Pelham?
Does the EDA have to get 30% of the net profits from the sale proceeds, or can that be negotiated with them?
So that is something that I put in the support agreement because of the amount of work that's going to need to be done
By them or the lawyer, the
by
attorney?
by the EDA. I put that in. That is not something they asked for, and I'm happy to talk about that if we need to make a modification to that.
Yeah, I would yield to Ms. Joyner if you can explain to they, I mean, what are they gonna do with the $60,000 or whatever?
So let me pause for a second and talk about what happens with the support agreement. So the Economic Development Authority is a separate political subdivision of the, set up by
I know
the.
that part, I
Yeah.
know, and I know they get paid for services. I'm saying, is that something that we did have to negotiate, how much we pay them, or is that a standard fee that people, that we pay, they get?
So I will tell you this, I derive that, putting my development hat on, if I was asked to do all of the things that the EDA is being asked to do in the support agreement, then all of that from a development fee standpoint is what I would be putting into a deal from the private sector standpoint. So I did it that way, and it's like they're our partner in this. So it's more like we're paying ourselves because there's so many other projects behind this that I'm going to be doing with the EDA and with council's approval. So what's important is that we're not running like a zero balance on every single thing. And so this is an opportunity to start to build that a little bit from the proceeds of this. Happy to change the amount, but I came up with that amount. No one from the EDA did.
Counselor Joyner?
Yeah. I really don't have a problem with that. I do understand the EDA needs funds to work with, and it's a process. It's something that we haven't had in the past.
Right.
A lot of EDAs have a lot of money, and that's how they make the deals. So in the end, I guess in the end, you can obviously say that our investment of $191,000 will yield significantly.
What I can tell you is
More.
that developable M1 land right now is roughly $100,000 an acre,
Okay.
and that's with no negotiation. That's starting.
And we've got 7.7 acres.
Not all of it is developable, that
Right.
wetlands area.
How many acres are
About
developable?
about 4 acres is
Okay, all
developable.
right then, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is an opportunity for us to make wise investment and generate return rather than land continuing to sit
Okay.
there and not do anything for us. And that's
Thank
what
you.
Are there any other questions from Mr. Bennett? No? Okay. Yeah, same sentiments from that I expressed from Counselor Joyner. I have no problem with the EDA getting some money on this to do some projects. I just also ask that if when we get to that point of the actual sale and negotiation, that a lot of this money goes towards some capital needs that are needed in the city. And I know we spoke offline about a couple things that I think are really urgent, and I know I've spoken with Dr. Manker on it. But that's just something that I personally are asking for, because I think that we need to show some more capital improvements throughout the city.
Absolutely. My job, what you hired me for, is to make recommendations and investment decisions that make returns to bring money into the general fund. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
So how that gets dispersed is obviously you guys allocate that.
Okay. Counselor Pelham?
Yeah, and what do we have, does our attorney have any input into this or consultation with the E EDA?
Yes, ma'am. I actually reviewed
Can you
the
talk into the
contract.
mic, ma'am?
I'm sorry. I always do that. I actually reviewed the contract today for Mr. Bennett, just to make sure that the city's interests were protected in the contract. I did approve it as to form. Yes, ma'am.
And do you work with the EDA in any manner? I can't remember.
I typically do not.
Yeah.
I think that more is the Economic Development Department, but I did have the opportunity to look at it thoroughly as presented. Yes, ma'am.
They have their own attorney, I guess.
Mr.
Yes,
Delos.
that's correct. The EDA has their own attorney. They pay out of their own
And
budget.
do you have any expertise that you can add that they don't have to pay an attorney?
I wouldn't add for the EDA. I would just add for the city of Hopewell. I did make some suggestions to Mr. Bennett for changes that I thought might benefit the city, and then approved it as to form.
Okay, did we see the changes, what we read?
There was an earlier version.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
The red
Ms.
lines
Smith
that-
has reviewed this several times.
Right.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve and resolve the support agreement and requested funding?
So move.
Okay. Is that
I have just one point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yes.
The the motion that I suggested in writing also includes the conveyance of the land to the EDA. Just want to make sure that that's read that way.
Just-
That's,
We'll read it out of the,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. I'd like to move that we request for council to approve support agreement with EDA for property acquisition in industrial property 15 Reverend C.W. Harris Street. And to approve the support agreement and requested funding.
Is that sufficient enough for you?
I would like the agreement to reference the support agreement has conveying the parcel that is here 0480339. That's part of the support agreement.
Okay.
If you don't think it needs to be in there, I
Well-
want to make sure
Yeah,
it's
it
clear.
Do
needs
you,
to be in
do you
there.
take that friendly amendment to add that in there?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, I know there's been some discussion about, how we use the words approve and resolve. Madam Attorney, do we need to say approve and resolve too?
You need to say, at the very least, approve,
Okay.
Said approve.
yes.
Well, just to cover ourselves, so that way we don't get into another situation like we
Right.
did with another organization. In that motion, can you include, would you take a friendly amendment, Counselor Joyner, for approve and resolve?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Is there a second? I'll second it. All right. Any more discussion? All right. Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Joyner,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham.
no.
Motion passes 4-1.
All right. And R3. Chief Rupert.
So, the Public Safety Department, all of public safety, really, the city in general, actually took a hit. Over this past week, we lost our uninterrupted power supply for the radio system. For those of you who aren't aware, the brains, so to speak, of our radio system is actually behind council chambers here in City Hall. That system supports the fire department, the police department, public works, recreation, basically everyone who has a city radio. The uninterrupted power supply that we currently have is actually over 25 years old. It was installed with the original 800 megahertz system that the city purchased in the late 90s. As you know, back in 15, council approved a measure to replace our radio system as it was aging, and we had actually lost a lot of functionality. At the time, it was determined to keep that UPS as a cost-saving measure. We've gotten almost another 10 years out of it. But this past week, it finally broke and is irreparable. This is a critical piece of equipment. Essentially, anytime the power goes out, the radio system goes down. At this point, our radio vendor has to be called in anytime. If there's a lightning strike and the power just blinks for a minute, that's enough to take down to turn the servers off. Our radio vendor has to come in, restart everything, and that's happened on a couple of occasions already. We've gotten a quote from the vendor that the city uses for the other UPS systems that it has. So all of our IT equipment obviously is on an uninterrupted power supply for the very same reason. The IT equipment down at wastewater treatment also has an uninterrupted power supply. So we got a quote from that vendor, and that is at the cost of $69,000. What that'll do is that'll give us 2 hours of power. That's enough time for the generator to start, and or if there's a problem with the generator, as you know, we have an aging generator that is set for replacement. That gives us time to actually call in a repair to the generator, make repairs, and hopefully get that back up before the system were to lose power completely. Some of the other jurisdictions around us that are in the process right now of replacing their radio systems, they have 3 hours of backup power in their UPS. We're asking for 2. 3 hours would actually have increased this cost by $50,000. So it would have been over $118,000 for the UPS, and would also have caused some significant challenges as far as space in the room, just because of the size of the batteries and so forth. So we're asking for 2 hours, and we wouldn't need to make any additional modifications to the room. But essentially, this is a big battery that allows the radio system to continue to run until the generator can come up until the power is restored. And I'll be glad to entertain any. The recommended location for the funding is from the ARPA funding that was turned into lost, that was of course turned over into lost revenue. So there was an email sent from the city manager yesterday afternoon. She had outlined in that email that council had requested that she provide a list of a spend down plan for that. And that is what she had provided to me to brief you on. There was $390,000 in that balance. She recommended the $191,100 be used for the purchase of the African American schoolhouse, which you just approved. She also recommended $69,000 for this UPS system that I just discussed, and then she recommended the remaining $129,900 be reserved for any additional costs that may be associated with the work of the Robert Bob Group. So as they do their work, there may be some additional software things that pop up as far as Munis is concerned and so forth. Usually a good rule of thumb is a 20%. This isn't quite 20% reserve on the cost of the project, but she feels like this would at least get us started with any additional costs that might be associated with the work of the Robert Bob Group.
Okay. I had Counselor Denton and then Counselor Pelham.
Okay, can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to utilize the $69,000 in city funds, formerly ARPA, to order a new UPS for the city's public safety radio system, and also to accept the city manager's suggestion of how to designate the leftover ARPA funds.
Point of order.
Okay. What's your point of order?
I think that's 2 different motions. The motion for the radio
That-
station.
69 is in with that, isn't it?
I know.
It is.
We
but
didn't
the
even talk
motions-
about-
Okay.
You need to have 2 different motions. for
Okay,
it.
that's
Yes,
fine.
ma'am. That's okay.
So your motion is to authorize the city manager to utilize $69,000 in city funds, formerly ARPA, to order the new UPS for the city's public safety radio system.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion.
And
Okay.
my question, me?
Yeah.
Was, did y'all know the radio was going down before the budget closed June 30th, 2023?
Ma'am?
Did y'all know the radio was going, I don't know. I mean, if you know something is old, did you put it in your budget to be replaced during budget time?
No, ma'am. So this was, actually, there was some repairs made to it last year. We were under the impression that it would continue to last for some time. We actually had a second unit, a similar unit that was down in the old dispatch center. Our radio vendor thought he could harvest some parts from that and make repairs to the one that we have. Unfortunately, he was unable to do that. And so this is where we are.
Well, can you get the city manager to maybe prepare the city a listing of all old equipment, for next budget this year? So, something with general lifespan is 25 years and we've had it for 35. Maybe that's the time we should look at it and budget for it. We don't have to wait till it break down per se every time to do some pre-planning and not living at the cliffhanger, waiting till it to break. Because it could have not been repaired and we've been out of radio service altogether, correct?
So,
It's hanging on now. what is it working on now?
So the system itself is functional as long as there's power. So what this does is this is a bridge. This bridges the gap between the time when we lose power and when the generator comes up. And so right now, as long as we have power, it's operating fine.
Okay, yeah.
It's when we have a blip or we lose power that it goes off, and then it requires a visit from
boost.
our maintenance folks to get it
Yeah.
back up.
Okay, so, all right.
I can't agree with you enough, Mrs. Pelham, as far as, we have quite a bit of equipment throughout the city that is very old and needs replacing. And so I think that all of us make a good faith effort to bring forth all the things that we feel like, rise to the top as far as the most important items. I think that, typically this is the radio system technically falls underneath the police department. As you know, they've had a number of priorities that have really, that they've come before you with requesting. And so, as with everything, we have to make a decision when it comes to prioritization of requests. I can't speak for them as far as, where this fell on that prioritization list, but obviously for all the reasons that you all know, they've had quite a few needs that they've been trying to address here recently from a capital improvement perspective. So this is just another one of those things that, again, back when we made the decision years ago to replace the system as a cost-saving measure at the time because of the limitations of the city and budgets, we did not replace it at that time. It probably would have been best to replace it then, but again, limitations on budget require that we try to do the best we can with what we have. So
Okay.
this is unfortunately where we are.
And also, Mr. Mayor, do we need to go back and add another motion to say where the money is coming from for the schoolhouse? Because we didn't put that in the motion. Is that necessary, Mr. Attorney?
I think, if I remember correctly, I'm looking at my paperwork here. I believe
I
the
didn't-
motion that was approved,
It did not specify.
it
where
did
the
not
money-
specify.
You did not say,
It did
If
not.
it did not specify, then it would be, the best form would be to add the funding
It did not
source
Okay.
inside
okay.
of the motion.
I mean, we can do that later, but I was making sure. So this motion just include this 69,000.
Right.
And then I would recommend the other ARP money we reserve and put on the agenda for next time to say what you want. Do we agree that that 129,000 should be reserved for the audit purposes?
Point of order, we got a motion
On the floor.
Yeah,
on
we
the
do.
floor.
Yes.
And we need to vote on that.
We're just discussing right now. I mean, I thought I saw Counselor Joy. Did you have your light on a second time?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, so the motion that's on the floor right now is just the $69,000 for the backup batteries.
Right.
All right, any more discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Joyner,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes,
Counselor Pelham.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Counselor Denton.
okay. I would like to make a motion that we accept the suggestion from the city manager on how to use the remainder of the ARPA money.
Point of order. That's
Okay.
not on the agenda. The only thing on the agenda deals with the
Well, the 191.
schoolhouse, not
Um,
the
Isn't
whole,
the
the other monies.
191 on there?
The 191 is,
Correct.
but you said,
Right, but that,
what she
well, hold on,
suggests.
hold on. Let's give it to the city attorney.
You all have already voted on the agenda, the agenda has already been approved, so you can only address the matters that are presented to council that are on the agenda.
Which is the 191.
So it's the 3 R items that are on the agenda that are to be voted on tonight, that's it.
So that would be the 191, you can, that's it. And the other
Send that.
money,
Up to them.
Okay.
Right.
So is there a motion to go back to item number 2? Is there a motion on the floor to specify that the funds in that motion is coming from city funds formerly labeled as ARPA?
motion.
Yeah. I mean, is there, someone move it?
I move that we adjust the motion to specify that the funding for the purchase of the schoolhouse on C.W. Harris Street, that those funds come from the ARPA funds. remaining
City
ARPA
funds formerly known as ARPA?
Yes, city
Okay.
funds formerly known as ARPA, yes.
All right, I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Seeing no lights, roll call, please.
Counselor Joyner,
Yes,
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton,
Yes.
Counselor Pelham.
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay. All right, that concludes tonight's city council meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, we're talking about that.